What's up, guys? Joan from Bennett's Customs. We're back on another episode, yet again, on the radial flyer. On our previous video, if you guys haven't seen it, we did make some I called them like a recessed boxing plate that kind of fit inside the frame rails. So in this video, I want to make some motor mounts. I want to get this thing fitted inside here, and I want to be able to fix it, throw those bolts through the motor mounts, fix the ones on the transmission, and roll this transmission jack away and go, all right, she's in there, she's mocked up, she's good to go. Let's start creating everything around it. Get this up in the air. We're gonna get this inside, square everything up, make some cardboard templates, transfer them over to the plasma cutter as you saw before, and then we can start to cut them out and get these things in. So very exciting. This is kind of a big day. It's Friday, and my goal is to have this in and bolted by the end of the day. So fingers crossed. All right, let's get into it. So as you can see, we have the driver's side, they're just basically bolted in. And just like a small tip, when you're kind of trying to make templates or, like obviously I'm trying to just figure out measurements and everything, usually just use paper and I'll just measure a bunch of times. It might take me a couple tries to make my template. Once I have that template and I like the way it fits, I'll then transfer it onto the piece of straw board. And then I'll cut it out of the straw board, usually drill the hole, and I'll actually fix this into place as if it were the material I was going to use. This straw board is quite thick. I believe I've said it by memory, but I think it's the 48 ounce, but the 24 ounce is really good too for making it. But it just holds its shape and it's quite firm, so it's really nice to make accurate templates out of. So I'm just working on this side, and once I get these ones done, I'll cut them out. And I'm just cleaning my edges as well, making sure that I'm in preparation for TIG welding them in. So I'll be able to jump in here, be able to do a few tacks, and then what I should be able to do is pull this motor out, and then we can pull these, TIG weld them up. I'm gonna make a little spacer for them, and then we'll just see about making gussets and making sure that everything's gonna work how we want it. But fingers crossed, it'll work. All right, so both sides, plates are done. Little tip, I've done this, but I always use cardboard and I always feel like it's a little bit too much. And previously, while Carl from Make It Custom was working on the ramp truck, building his 4-link setup for the back, he used paper for a shim. And the reason why we're shimming it is because when we go to put these together and we want to weld them in, and especially afterwards when we, I have to make a little spacer plate to weld them and then let them cool down so they don't want to pull in. This is purely just adding the smallest amount just so that it still can slide in and out. You did not want to be trying to bend them to be able to get the engine mount or the cradle in, and you don't want to have too much play either so they're pulling in and bending on themselves either. So it seems like a piece of paper will be the perfect amount on both sides, so I've just made little paper ones. So I'm going to stick these in, we're going to get the TIG welder over here, and once we're good to go, everything's cleaned. You may have seen I use the wire wheel, so I always just hit it on the linisher and try and really smooth my edges out. I love when the grain sort of always follows the same way all the way around, so I'm always going this way. And maybe it's just like an aesthetic thing. And then obviously we've just beveled the edges, and then I've just cleaned up our areas. Our area where we are actually welding to the inside of that recessed plate, I have 45-degree all the way around, and that's just purely to get really good penetration while we're welding. So I'm gonna stick these ones in. I'll transfer some little washers onto the other side, and yeah, and we should be good to go. So there you go. We got both of our mounts, the left and the right. You can see they're only like slightly different, but by a fraction. And I think that's just, oh, ah, ah, oh, Jesus. Yeah. Oh, fucking holy. Oh. Ow. All right, back to regular programming. These are the mounts, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually probably just going to MIG weld them. You're not really going to see them, and it's just a little bit easier to get the MIG in there than it is the TIG. Once those are welded, I need to somehow encapsulate this, or maybe making like a little brace across here, even like a tube or something, just to help them from wanting to flex. Might just drop some templates, but for now, I'm just going to fully weld these to make sure that they're done, and then we can come up with a plan. All right, as you can see, we've just bolted them back in. I've welded them up, MIG'd it. It was a little bit easier again. I had mentioned about TIG welding them too. And everything kind of lines up. I put the cradle back in here and it's all working. I went and drilled a few holes into the top and bottom of the frame and made a little access hole up here and dropped one through, and this is going to be bolted in as well. And what I'm going to do is actually box part of this and put a little dimple die in, and that's just going to sort of encapsulate this part of the motor mount, and then whether or not we need to put something in here to support it. But once that cradle's in and bolted in, it's kind of supporting itself, but I would still like to kind of box this area just to, you know, make it obviously a little bit better. These still have a bit of flex, as you can see. So once the motor's in, I'm not going to be surprised if these have a little bit of flex kind of within this frame rail. So if I have to, I can somehow connect one to the other, or again, I was mentioned about potentially running something up and putting it to the bottom of the floor here. So there's a few different options if I need to. Kind of don't want to put those in quite yet until I figure out where radiators are going to go and fuel tank and stuff like that. So I'm going to pull these out now. I'm going to drill all these out and then, yeah, just put all the bolts in, make sure it's good, and then we'll start to make a cardboard template for our little boxing plate. All right, so that time lapse basically just was showing how I made these little plates, and these are gonna sit right in here like that. And there's sort of a fit where I've kind of left the edge, so they're just touching, and that's just allowing, you know, if you have two bits like that, there's a nice area where you can actually put some weld into or some filler. So I'll TIG weld these in. I'm just gonna go over to the press. I got my dimple die that we're gonna use, and hopefully we can dimple die these, and then yeah, we'll be able to get them over here, clean everything up, prep it all to weld it, get the TIG welder set up, and then we can TIG weld these in. And then we can bolt this in, get that motor stuck in, and hopefully remove that transmission mount and stand back and go, we did it. So let's go over to the press. All right, so we got them welded up. Yeah, it was obviously pretty straightforward. I used a little spacer plate. That was the exact same size as our bushing plus, I think it was like 1/2 mil, just to make sure that we had enough in there. And I just put that in purely just for when we were welding these in here. Didn't want anything to move. Like, you know, they're pretty robust. They're definitely not the lightest motor mount, but again, I had mentioned, you know, I wanted to sort of over-engineer them. I'm still considering something in between here. So I wouldn't say they're fully finished, but for now, I'd like to try and get them bolted in, put the cradle in, get the motor, and yeah, basically see if we can get this thing in there and remove that transmission jack to see if, you know, if it's gonna sit under its own weight. Okay, go down with everything. So, all right, it's very hot today, as you can see, but this is the moment of truth right here. So I'm just gonna take this strap off. Cradle's in, motor mounts are in, transmission is in. Okay, that's the whole van moving. Sweet. All right, I think that's it. Let's drop this sucker down. Wow. That's extremely satisfying. You know, that's a major milestone. I think with any project, for, you know, a lot of you guys can probably relate to it. Whether you're putting a motor in a hot rod or something completely different, the feeling of like fitting the motor and actually bolting it in for like the first time in its own little space under its own mounts, under its own weight, you know, that's a major milestone. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm very stoked on that. And it seems like strong too. I don't want to pull too much on it because it's on the hoist, but like, it doesn't really seem like it's flexing much. That is so sick. I'm gonna just get this right out of the way so we can have a good genuine look at it. And you can see I still got about 2 fingers, maybe just over 1 inch of space above. I didn't want to bring the head too close to that top panel. I want it to still be able to breathe. And it may seem like it's sitting low, but these things kind of, I had mentioned before, the original motors did sit really low anyways, but I did the measurement with that tire as I did before on our previous video, and we did some measurements, and I still have about 225 mil from ground to the bottom of this cross member. Then that is like the lowest it could possibly go, and it'll never run that low. And what I'm thinking is I still want to maybe make a nice little sort of skid plate for it as well, in something that may travel up towards the transmission. And I was also thinking about maybe running some louvers, either kind of a reverse louver so it would actually pick up some air, or running them the backwards way, and that still kind of, the way they're designed is it creates that, you know, that little vortex and it pulls air through. And then this back, I guess you would call it the trunk lid, or rear engine panel, that's going to be fully louvered as well, and that'll help expel a little bit of the heat off the motor as well. And remember, these are water cooled too, so we have had a few comments about how we're going to cool it, and fortunately we will be running a radiator. Unsure exactly where I'm going to put them, maybe possibly up in here, or up in these fluted areas, and could build some ducting, or could run one down below in between the frame rails where we're going to get an ample amount of air being able to flow through that. So yeah, I'm stoked. I think we're going to end that video here, and we'll pick up next week on a few more things, but we are going to start to work on one of the new 2024 projects, so you might see a little bit of that next week, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. It was obviously not crazy crazy stuff. We were just kind of making plates and welding them together, but to be able to see this end result with nothing under here holding the motor up, I'm really stoked. So anyways, make sure you guys like, subscribe, hit notifications. Yeah, tell your friends about us. Get them on.